3, 2, 1. There we go. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Thursday, January 17th. In attendance are regular members DeFrancisco, Mace, Sienna, and Dulac. The first order of business would be the approval of the minutes from January 3rd, which I think everybody had a copy of.
Sorry, because I only have 3 copies, so
Oh.
if you
Or
could just share.
they can share.
Thank you.
I can't share with anybody because Bill's not here.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all I was looking at. Make sure it's in there, all that stuff is there. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. If you're ready, somebody can make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes 4-0. Okay, so we have a continued public hearing for 2 text amendments, 2018-13 and 14, which are the definitions for the medical marijuana dispensary and medical marijuana production facility. So just before we ask if there's any public comment, which I don't think there is, but just recently I read in a couple news outlets that recreational legalized marijuana could be completed by the end of this year, or it's on track whether it gets passed or not. And then the one thing that was kind of concerning from what is here is that they said, well, we have laws in place, or whatever you want to call it, ordinance in place, that we can just tag along with the recreational marijuana. So I don't really know what that means.
Meaning the recreational can tag along with the medical.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes,
Correct.
yeah. So, based on that, I don't really think we should even move or take any action on these.
Agreed.
So, my recommendation would be put another moratorium on both of these, but leave these on the agenda. We could take some comment, but leave them there just in case if it fails, then we don't have to start all over again, because we already have them here. But I wanted to get your thought on that.
So if you vote to implement a moratorium, I would just recommend that you continue this to one more meeting, so
Oh,
I
yeah,
can
of course.
just draft the motion
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a moratorium.
yeah.
But the moratorium can only last for 1 year.
Right.
So that would actually take it off the agenda, but we could continue it as a just discussion item, but because there's,
Oh, we could just take it off completely if we can, that's fine.
right,
Yeah.
so the action that you would need to take with these is, you could withdraw them because you're actually
Okay.
the applicant,
Right, yep.
and then you could instead vote for a moratorium.
Now, if we withdraw them, these two, and then let's say they take no action in Hartford, can we just bring these 2 back up? Or do we have to go through the whole process again, advertise it, all that?
Yes, you would have to re-advertise.
Okay,
Yep.
all right.
Because it's a new, it's just a new number, we would start kind of the new timeline, we would wanna re-advertise to people to let them know
Yeah.
that the process is starting up again.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So I said we table both, we'll continue these public hearings till next week, and then we can decide, Carrie can put together a moratorium if we wanna go that direction, and then we can, if we do that, then we can withdraw these 2 at that time. But we'll table that to the next meeting.
Now, if the state does act on whatever they do sooner than a year, this could be brought up before the moratorium is up, correct?
Yes,
Well, we would have to withdraw the moratorium.
right,
Yeah.
And then,
Bring
yeah,
it back.
yeah, so,
right, you would have to vote to, remove the moratorium.
right,
And then submit the application
right,
and re-advertise and all of that.
all right, perfect.
Do you wanna see if there's any public
I was
comment?
just about, yeah.
Okay.
Would anybody like to speak on either one of these text amendments since the public hearing's still open? We have a large audience tonight. I thought somebody was here for that, no? Okay. Seeing none, we're gonna move on to, well, no possible action on these two. Old business is gonna be, application 2019-2 will be continued to February 7th meeting. So that being said, we're on to planning items, which would be, the first one would be a presentation from Malone and McBroom.
Thanks, everybody. We've been working on this project for the last few months and just wanted to give the commission an update on where we're at and some of our findings to date. So,
Have your name before you go to
oh,
work.
sure. My name is Pat Gallagher with Malone and McBroom, and we're the consultant helping the town with the update of the plan of conservation and development. So I always like to start with just a background on what is a POCD. I know some of you have been around for the previous plan and kind of know how the process works. But overall, it's meant to be an advisory document that's really a decision-making document for you as you're considering future applications and future zoning changes. However, it is very much advisory. It's not the same as a regulation, a zoning map, or a zoning amendment. And it's really an opportunity for you to engage the public proactively in probably a little bit different of a manner than you probably usually get when you hear from them on a specific application. And so really it's meant to be a policy guide at a very high level, meant to give you some action items and priorities to work on over the next decade. So as I mentioned, we've been working on this for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and we anticipate wrapping this up later this summer. The first half of a POCD process is really you're sitting down, you're meeting with staff, you're meeting with PCC, you're meeting with the public, you're crunching numbers, and you're really trying to set that baseline of where are we at today as a community and how have we changed over the last 10 years. And we're just about to wrap that part up, and then we enter a more forward-looking visioning and goal-setting stretch, which will run starting over the next week or so with our first public workshop, and then continuing throughout the spring, we'll start to look at some priorities and goals for the next 10 years. So we've been busy over the last few months. The North Branford Community Survey was launched earlier in the winter. We had almost 800 respondents. It was one of the highest turnouts per capita in any of the towns that we've worked in. Carrie did a great job of getting the word out. Roger and Mike were out handing out cards on election day to people visiting the polls. So it was really a great team effort, and we're really, really happy with the results. And the full results are posted on the project website. It's nbpocd2019.com,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I encourage you to take a look. There's some really good information in there. We've been sat down with various town staff, really getting an idea of the projects that they're working on, some of the issues that they see. We've also been crunching a lot of numbers behind the scenes. We've gotten away from doing these very long, dense plans and are going towards fact books. So you have just a PowerPoint presentation with some of the key numbers, and that's kind of appended to the back of the plan rather than giving you this large document that no one's ever going to read. We have a few more topics that we're going to cover in the next couple of weeks. We're waiting on some maps from Scrog, but we're almost there. And then finally, we're doing a special area study. Because we have Scrog doing the mapping, we were able to reallocate some dollars towards a special focus area. And we had some good conversation with the steering committee at our last meeting and decided that we need to explore the town campus concept and Tutucket Valley Park a little further, really gauging the community's pulse. What types of things would they like to see there? What's the level of support for moving town hall there? Are there any other potential investments that people would like to see there, and what's the kind of pro and con when it comes down to paying for it? So that's something we're going to dive deeper into over the next couple of weeks. And I'll summarize some of our key findings over the next couple of slides. To start with values and strengths, going forward as we're starting.
Can we just go back real
sure.
quick? Since you're up here and this is on TV, Facebook Live and everything, the first public workshop is on January 29th.
Yep.
Can you provide the details of what that will entail?
Sure. Do you want me to do that now? Or I have
Oh,
actually
you
a
have
slide
that
at the
later
end.
on? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
All right.
no worries.
I'm sorry.
Oh, he's the chair.
Well, I'm just going by what I see here. I didn't get a chance to pre-read this.
All right, so our first slide here on kind of our findings to date are your values and strengths. These are things that when we're coming up with goals and strategies, they're really things that we want to preserve and things that you already do well. And what we heard from folks through the survey and through our various meetings thus far is, you know, your small town, rural, and agricultural roots are really, really valued by your community. and that's something that we need to preserve going forward. Despite being a small town and a rural community, you also are close to employment, you're close to the highways, without necessarily having to deal with some of the issues that the highway towns have to deal with in terms of overdevelopment and the like. Great quality of life. Most of your survey respondents rated quality of life as excellent or good, and then also your housing is very diverse. You have options for first-time buyers to buy into the community. You have some multifamily housing. You have opportunities for people to upsize within the community, and many towns don't have as diverse of a housing stock as you. Next are opportunities. These are things, trends that we saw in the community and ongoing initiatives that you're going to be able to capitalize on over the next 10 years. Your housing market has recovered. When we looked at your sales data, it had recovered faster than most of your neighboring towns, so some positives there. You've also seen a net growth in jobs at a faster rate than the county and the state. Again, another positive that hopefully can continue going forward. You have ongoing efforts to improve the town campus in Pawtucket Valley Park. You have the police station project in progress. You've made some investments in your recreational facilities. Again, something to continue over the next 10 years. And in addition, making investments in other town facilities. I know the intermediate school was recently renovated. So you're making the investments in enhancing the quality of life and maintaining what you already have. Farm uses we know are very important to the community, and those are always evolving and changing. And so opportunities to continue to maintain the viability of your farms by continuing to modify, what is a farm. The things that farms do today are very different than what farms did 20 years ago. And finally, access to Lake Gillard. We know that historically it's not been a resource that residents have been able to take advantage of, but we know that there are at least some ways now to get access to some parts of the property, and hopefully this is something that can move forward and become more of a community resource over the next 10 years by working with the Regional Water Authority. And lastly, I don't mean to end on a downer, but we also like to identify challenges as part of the POCD process, and hopefully we can find some action items to address these challenges over the next 10 years. One thing we explored in the survey was whether folks felt a sense of unity between North Branford and Northford, and less than half did. So that's something to juggle. You also have an aging population, and so some of the needs may be shifting among your community members, more need for senior services, maybe shifting away from some other services. You have made investment in your community facilities, however others are still in need of some investment, notably the police station, and we also had several folks in the survey writing about the high school. Because you're a rural community, you also rely on your residential tax base, and that makes it difficult when you're considering major investments in facilities. Ultimately, the residents are going to be footing a substantial part of that bill. And on economic development, the most common thing we heard was less about having more development and more so bringing up the quality of your existing commercial stock. You have some older shopping plazas, you have some high vacancies in some, and so there was interest in trying to improve both the condition and the occupancy and the aesthetics of those. And finally, state fiscal conditions are challenging right now, and so access to grant funds is not as high as it had been in the past. However, hopefully things will change within that 10-year window and some more discretionary dollars become available. So to get back to Harry's comment before.
You just made a slide specifically for me.
Just for you, I have two, so I can go back.
Before we go to the next one, so the top one, do you by chance know if the data they took from the survey, if it is more like overall for the town, or was it more Northford or North Branford that showed like that lack of connection? Because I'm assuming you know where like the people that took the survey, where which side of the town they live in. Was it more?
I'll have to look it up.
Or?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. I don't know if we asked the question of if you live in Northford or North Branford.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
think that was on there.
But
Yeah.
the other thing that we had discussed was their age,
Mm.
Okay. Yep.
right? So if people maybe had kids in the school system, maybe they feel like they are more part of, there's unity between the two.
Yeah. And that's
villages.
also part of the reason why I think the steering committee wanted to explore the whole town campus concept is, maybe an opportunity to kind of have that center that's right between the two that can hopefully help bridge the gap. But overall, I think we were pretty representative on the survey. in terms of age groups.
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
And not regarding our POCD, but things you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at a regional meeting last week, and someone was speaking that was, you know, our cities, our larger populations like New Haven and different cities like that, you know, they're kind of catering, they're trying to go toward a younger population to get them to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was stunned to hear that in New Haven, they really don't have really an affordable housing plan. So now, you know, you see it happen with restaurants,
Mhm.
or, you know, the rents go up so high, the owners of those developments want to push them out because they know they can get 12 condos in
Mhm.
there, and that goes with other housing. Do you see that the aging population in the cities, you know, become retired or
Mhm.
whatever it might be, leaving the cities to go to more, or, you know, to the suburbs,
Mhm.
where the younger folks will be going into, well, at least they're trying to get the younger folks to go to
Mhm.
the city.
They're
Have you seen that at all, or is
So-
that just kind of like kind of new?
Yeah, so I think the best way to explain it, so the way I see it is you kind of have these big generations. You have the baby boomers, now you have the millennials, and people who are talking about kind of the urban revitalization, it's really to get that big millennial generation to move into the city. But as they age, which they are now, and you know they're in their late 20s and 30s, their preferences may change from urban to, you know, if they have kids, all of a sudden, you know, living in a city center may not, you know, be as exciting as it was. And so, unfortunately, we're so far removed from a census, it's hard to know definitively what's happening. But if I had to guess, I would say that, you know, the trends of young folks flocking to the city is probably going to continue, but you have this big group kind of in their late 20s and early 30s that are going to be going under, you know, through lifestyle changes where they may be looking at suburban towns. So I think it's somewhat of a overstatement that, you know, suburbs are dying and cities are going to, you know, be
Oh,
growing.
yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. Hopefully in 2020, when we have some new census numbers, we'll know.
Maybe.
So. All right, so we do have our first workshop coming up a week from Tuesday, January 29th at 7 p.m. at the new North Branford Intermediate School. And we like to have these as more interactive and informal discussions. We don't want it to be, you know, a public hearing where folks come up and speak for 30 seconds. We want it to be engaging and have, you know, just an open dialogue. And it's really our role as a consultant to listen, and we encourage you all to attend and kind of float around and see what folks have to say. And ultimately, we're looking for feedback on on all the information we've collected to date on the community vision and values. Are we on the right track? Is there anything that we've missed? Is there anything that might need to be modified? And then identify some key issues and areas that we need to explore as we start to get into goals and strategies. So we have a draft agenda where we'll have a brief presentation. It'll actually be very similar to this, and then we'll break out into 4 groups that cover 4 topics. And we usually like to have 2 topics focused on, one on open space and one on economic development, to really get an understanding of what are some open space priorities. Are there specific lands that are of high conservation value that the town or a land trust should prioritize over the next 10 years? And also, what's the balance between buying new versus enhancing what you already have? That's, you know, there's limited dollars for open space, and to what extent do you use that money to buy new, or do you just build more trails or enhance the properties that you already have? Economic development is the same sort of trade-off. You know, where should the town focus its efforts? We know that folks want to grow the grand list, but you can't set a priority for the whole town. You need to be more specific. Is it on Route 80? Is it in Northford? Hoping to get some feedback on a map that we show. And then we also want to include an agricultural board in the economic development station, where we're focusing on how farms have changed and some of the new uses that farms are associated with, and see if there's any, you know, opportunities or challenges associated with those. And then the last 2 will be more open-ended, what we call the top planning and development issues, where folks write on Post-it notes, let us know their top issues, and it could be, you know, a positive, it could be a negative, more open-ended. And then finally, a community investment station, where we have 15 or so different options that people can vote for. And typically we do this with popsicle sticks, so we give them 10 popsicle sticks and 15 choices and say, it's up to you. You can put one stick in 10 different jars, you can put all 10 in one, and it gives us some good information on what are the relative priorities. Ideally you'd want to fund everything, but in reality you can't. So if it were up to you, how would you do it? And so those usually give us some good data points and really help validate our overall trajectory and vision for the plan. So once we finish up the first public workshop, we're really going to hit the ground running on the special focus area. We want to launch a follow-up survey initially, and then we can follow that up with either a special workshop or we can roll that into our second follow-up workshop. Before the second workshop, we want to start to develop some overall goals and strategies and themes for you all to chew on, and then we can vet those with the public at our second workshop later in the spring. Once we have that feedback, we can then start to draft the plan and shooting for an early summer referral process, and then that starts a 2-month review process, which will hopefully get us to the adopted plan later in the summer. So any questions?
So just one question that I think I had emailed you also is, for the public workshop, where the popsicle stick activity, how do you decide what capital investments will be put out there?
We'll circulate draft boards to you.
Okay.
Hopefully early next week. We're waiting on those 2 scrog layers
Yes.
for the maps, but we'll give it to you. Looking for your feedback, make sure we're on the right track.
Okay,
So,
great.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Real quick, Patrick.
Yeah.
On for the workshop, you mentioned real quick on your level of support for different agricultural uses and that part. When you guys go for the different aspects here, do you look at what's currently getting implemented at the federal level and the state level right now for whether it be agriculture or other aspects for when you go into this?
So, I would say we like to include kind of some basic information. That's not actually something I'm familiar with. If you have any good resources to share, I'd be happy to take a look. And that way.
I'll get into later on today, but for at least agriculture, a lot of farms, well, all the farms throughout the country and then the state's just implementing it, is the new FSMA federal regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that all our farms in town are gonna have to meet the new standards for
Mhm.
and everything. So addition to what's existing,
Mm-hmm.
so that might be something, you easily look that up or even like reach out to like one of the people at Department of Ag, see like how this
Sure.
impacts the farmers in the current state.
Mm-hmm.
and stuff
Okay.
like that.
And is there any, is that more kind of an environmental side of a regulation, or?
It's everything.
Okay.
It's from the fields to food safety,
Got it.
all the way to market and,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll have, I'll take a look and we'll make sure that whoever's at that station, actually Rebecca in my office, is much more knowledgeable than I am. So maybe we'll have her man that and get a briefing on it. But I think our intent was to focus more on use, because we know that, your farms are doing, you have wineries now, potential brewery, weddings, there's kind of a whole new list of uses associated with farms, and that was kind of more of our intent.
Okay.
So, all right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is the town planners report.
So I have received one application for a proposed project at 28 Branford Road, which is on Route 139, across from Rose's Orchard. Right now, there's just one single-family home there. It's zoned industrial, and they're proposing 2 buildings to be connected. So each building is around 22,000 square feet, and it would be medical offices. So it's an allowed use in that zone just through site plan. So, do you wanna just see the layout? Are you interested?
Yeah.
Just to look at it. They're presenting at the next meeting on February 7th, but just to show you.
Here, how do you turn this thing off?
There's a power button. You can reach it. Can you reach it?
Thanks, Pat.
On the back, pad on the right-hand side. Yep, thank you.
facility for both?
I believe it's just doctor's offices, so I don't know who the tenants are yet. They have secured one tenant, but I'm not sure what kind of medicine they're practicing.
But it could be
Private.
anyone in the future.
Sorry?
It could be anyone in the future.
Yes,
Yeah,
the use, the approved use is professional offices,
Okay.
so as long as it fits into that.
So it wouldn't be urgent care, i.e.
Well, we don't know, I mean, let's
Oh, like
let's
an
not get into
ambulance?
details.
If this is there, yes,
No, correct, it's
Yeah.
not urgent care.
because this layout doesn't show
Right.
Yeah.
No, these are
ambulance
doctor's
coming,
offices.
right, primary care then.
Okay. So here's 139. There's, like I said, there's an existing house around this area. Here's the entrance up here for Rose's Orchard. And then this is the proposed layout, 2 buildings connected.
What are those blue arrows for?
These are my notes. Sorry.
No,
This
no,
is
what's that?
drainage.
Oh.
I just wanted to see where it went and how and. And then I'll just show you the architectural.
Oh, so there's.
So this is the driveway going in.
What's there now, just
Parking.
all open land?
It's all wooded.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So this is what you see at one of the ends. So the second building would be behind this.
Okay.
And then this is the side profile, so you can see the bridge connecting the two of them.
So it's just a bridge connecting on the
So this is from Branford Road, or do you want to go around the corner?
That would be,
Maybe a curve?
right, looking from Branford, looking north. This
Okay.
is what it says east-west elevation, 'cause it's facing east-west. I think they even have one labeled perspective from the road right here. So this is kind of the corner. So you're seeing one building here,
Mhm.
the connection's back there, and here's the second building.
And it's gonna be at the next meeting.
Yes. So just so you can see the concept anyway. I wasn't gonna nail it to the plans just because they're so
I
big.
agree,
Yeah, no,
see
yeah.
the postage and
Okay.
the trees.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Don't wanna knock it off the floor.
Kelly's going crazy in the back room.
Yes, I know, right. Okay.
Anything else, Carrie?
Yes, so then I added one other item, which is discussion regarding open space at 55 Tommy's Path and the use of open space funds to complete a survey of the property so it could be transferred to the land trust. So this is, at 48 Tommy's Path, there was a 3-lot subdivision that was approved. They created open space, which is required. And you'll remember, we had talked with the land trust, they weren't interested in just that little sliver of land. They would be interested if the town were able to transfer the larger piece, which is to the east of that land at 55 Tommy's Path. So I've been talking with the attorney for the land trust, and he would like a full survey of the town's parcel, which we don't have. We took that parcel through foreclosure, and there's an expense associated with the survey. After kind of batting this around quite a bit, I was trying to think of, okay, how can we convey this? Is it worth it? But I just wanted to bring this up. I don't know that this is the right avenue of using funds, because we would have to go back to town council, and I don't think that the use of that money is worth it, because it's not even land that the town would retain. It would then be transferred to the land trust. So I'm coming back to you because we're in this situation of if that small piece doesn't go to the land trust, then it would go to a homeowners association. So I would have to bring it back to you anyway for that piece of land created through the 3-lot subdivision would go into a homeowners association, and then the land owned by the town would just stay owned by the town as it has been, and it would just remain open and wooded, so.
Does
that's
the town
the
have any
situation.
feelings on that?
Who do you mean by the town?
Are you conveying it over to, the land trust?
Well, I had gone to the town council months ago now, and they had said, you know, if we can work everything out, they had voted to pursue that. But now there's all of these conditions, so there was no approval of, you know, spending any town money to
Why do they need-
convey that.
Why do they need a survey?
That is what their attorney is recommending to the land trust.
For what purpose though?
He's trying to protect the land trust to know exactly what the boundaries are of that parcel. He's also making a request of a warranty deed, which our town attorney said that that's not a possibility.
What's that?
So from what I understand, a warranty deed just guarantees that there's no encumbrances or anything else on the land through the deed that
Right
could
of ways,
potentially
limits.
harm the future landowner, which would be the land trust. So once the land trust owns it, if there's other liens or issues with the deed itself, then that new owner could potentially become liable for
Well,
any mortgages or
But anytime
liens.
we transfer things to the land trust, we haven't had to do
I
the
was gonna
warranty
say, what-
before.
this
We've done
sounds
this, I
different.
mean, this is ongoing, you know, we've done this for how many, I mean,
Right.
probably many,
Right.
many years.
Right,
So it's just because it's the lawyer, they have a new lawyer now, or whatever it might be.
I'm not
How-
sure.
Do we know how much would cost for a survey?
I don't have a number yet. I had an estimate of 600, but I don't have anything in writing, so
And how much money is in, open space fund, do you know?
it's several thousand, but, yeah,
Just a question.
yes.
How many acres is the land trust getting?
Through the, which piece? The
Yes,
small
in
one?
total.
Or what is each piece?
So the open space through the 3-lot subdivision is about 1,700 square feet, so less than half an acre. And the other piece, I believe, is about 4 acres.
So they're basically getting 4.5 acres for nothing. They have enough money to hire a lawyer to tell us, for us to survey, to give them 4.5 acres free.
Right,
I don't know.
right, so,
Well, I'm just curious too, it seems like it's a new way of transferring land, so why this and why this property, and is this how it's gonna be moving forward? Cause if it's a clear,
right, well, their attorney had said to me that going forward, he would like to develop a checklist of things that they would be requiring.
and is it a new attorney?
I don't know.
Um,
I've worked with him in the past, but I don't know if this is new, if he's new to the land trust. I've worked with him since I've been here,
For the land trust or for other reasons?
for the land trust. So I think at this point, it seems like we're kind of at a standstill and,
Let's wait for the checklist to see if this, what's gonna be going forward.
Can we also get an answer as to why are you requesting this? Like, maybe there is a
well,
good
he's,
reason, we
so
don't know
he,
it.
no, he's trying to protect the interest of the land trust.
But they've never done this before, so that's why it's like,
Correct.
And they're
Maybe
getting
it's
the land for
soon.
nothing.
Right, right.
And, you know, what else, does he want it fenced in too? I mean, you know,
Well, they're
I
not,
think
I
he's,
mean,
I think he's pushing the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
which again, maybe there is a good reason, but there is a difference in the past, are we setting a precedent for the future? Like, is there a legitimate reason or just cause? Like, I think,
Well, I think
Need some
he's
more
trying to, his reason is he's
changes
trying to
in-
protect the interest of the land trust by knowing exactly where their parcel boundaries are and to prevent any potential encumbrances on the land.
I mean, I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, why this property? Does it have some special
No.
conditions that maybe it does warrant this or not? That's, you just, if there was a good
We-
reason, fine, but it sounds like there's no good reason.
yeah, it might be something going forward. I mean, one of the things is we've we don't accept the fee, the fee, so we can get the, you know, the acreage.
The land, right.
And the only
Yes.
way we can fund the
Yes.
open space is if we take the fee. So I hope they understand that. I mean, if we do, let's say, 2 surveys, we would be, let's just say we had to do 2 surveys on 2 parcels. There would be no more money in there, so then we wouldn't be able to do any more surveys unless we went to the town council, and, yeah, I wouldn't
Yes.
recommend taking money out to do that to transfer the land. Now, the land's not gonna be developed. I mean, if there's, you know, but I'm saying there's just, you know, the whole reason why we do this is, you know, it's a benefit to the town, it's benefits to land trust, benefits to the community. But now if we have to start doing all this extra stuff, we really have to consider, you know, there's some
Mhm.
things we're gonna have to consider,
Right.
and including, you know.
Well, and I think some of it, going forward, if there is this checklist of requiring a survey and a warranty deed and those kinds of things, it could potentially work out if it's on land that is being subdivided, so
Right.
we can put it on the developer and it makes
Yeah.
sense for them to provide those things. In this situation, it's a town piece of property that's adjacent to this, so we can't ask the developer to do
Correct.
the survey. I tried.
Yeah, so it's.
He said no.
So I think.
Which doesn't make any sense either, he's not associated with that
Yeah,
parcel.
again, if there was a good reason, I think
My
it would
recommendation
would
be, let's
better
wait,
discussion.
let's wait to see their checklist, and let's have some conversations and include the checklist conversation with this one.
Okay, it doesn't sound like they're going to, I can revisit it and let the attorney for the land trust know that it's not looking, if I can say this, it's not looking favorable that the town is going to be paying for a survey. They have the option to take the land as it is, and we'd like to, you know, develop the checklist for land to be subdivided going forward that would go to the land trust, but in this situation, it's kind of unique in that the town owns it, we took it through foreclosure. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, we're just, we're not, at this moment, we can always revisit again and see, I mean, I would like other folk, town council weigh in and say, I mean, if they want to do it, I mean, is there a benefit or of transferring it over to land trust, or keeping it just in public, you know, space?
This was going to be the first parcel that we started this process of transferring town-owned open space to the land trust, to
Gotcha.
try and kind of take it off of Fran Marola's list of properties that he had to run out and deal with a downed tree, you know, because
Okay.
it's falling from town property onto someone else's. This one's a little different in that it's set back, and it was kind of chosen to be first only because it abutted this other 3-lot subdivision.
Right.
So it made sense to combine the open space created as part of this 3-lot subdivision with existing open space. But because of this foreclosure issue and all the history of this property in particular, I guess is the reason
Oh,
is
so
why
this
it's
has
like
a little bit
complicated.
more complex issues that could
Mhm.
support a
Yeah.
warranty deed and
But-
survey.
To further that, if it stays as open space, it's not the end of the world. It's been open space, you know, for years, so it would remain open and open to the public. And then the piece that was created as open space as part of the 3-lot subdivision could go into a homeowners association.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, like, if it's $600, I mean, we're never gonna, well, I don't wanna say never, but we're probably not amassing enough money in the open space fund to really do anything with it as far as property goes. So, I mean, if the survey is needed for just this one property, in future ones, we may not need it. I mean, I would consider it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we might as well consider everything. But, you know, if there's certain factors, but if you can reach out, just find out exactly why we
Yes.
need to do it, and if this is something we need to do going forward. 'Cause like I
Correct.
said, we only have so much money,
Right.
because otherwise, then every time we did something like that, we would have to you know, the town council would have to
Right.
budget that in
Right.
each year.
Right, this is
So-
genuinely unique because of the reasons you just stated.
Mm-hmm.
But the money, I'm not sure how long the money's been in there, and what has any money been taken out of that at any time?
Not since I've been here. I believe
Yeah,
the
so-
last time the town, and I don't know if it was all that money used to purchase Y-Check, but I don't think that was only through the open space fund. I'm not.
Right.
I think some of that must have been town funds, so.
Yeah, there's only a few thousand in there, again, if Public Works feels that it's, you know, it's something they don't have to worry about, and it's $600, it's a one-time thing, I mean, I'd consider it, but we can see down the road.
I guess my question is this funded by every time someone does a subdivision? If they can't give open space, why do we only have?
No, I don't have the exact amount. We should have, I didn't wanna
That's already
say the
said
exact
so.
amount, because I know I'll be wrong.
Yeah, 'cause I know a rather short, handsome, older Italian fellow that had a right to check for over 15 grand when he subdivided his father's property, and, you know, with 15,000 as opposed to 3.
Well, they've used some of it since then, when they did the swag check property, possibly, yeah.
I'll get the exact amount for the next meeting.
Yeah, and I also think that $600 is a joke. You know, they don't survey $600.
You think
it
it's
should be
more?
more or
Yes.
less?
Oh, okay.
Well, the only thing is that might be different is that they have a lot of information because they have the western side of the parcel, because it was part of that 3-lot subdivision.
Mhm.
So they would only have to do the other side.
I'll keep some points. for
Okay.
discussion, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
There's a
Tim
sign.
Jacks.
What's that?
Can I make a motion for amendment for other business?
Sure.
I wanna make a motion for amendment for, the farm events that, Bill brought up last time.
Yep.
And then, make a motion for, this might go with that one, but might not, but, helping protect, farmers' land, more specifically with, ATVs.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, floor is yours.
Okay. Gary, I think I mentioned this to you before, I'm not sure, and like how I brought it to Patrick before, for the farm events, possibly looking into the new FSMA regulations and now what all farmers in the town, in our state, around the whole country now are, held to. And real quick, FSMA is Food Safety Management Act, all different kinds of, aspects of farming, fall underneath. There are some exemptions to it. Our state, essentially, every state was told by the federal government, this is, the new regulations that got passed back in, 2011 during the Obama administration. And they're telling each state, here, have fun trying to figure out how to implement it. And so the states the past few years have been trying to figure it out. And this year, it looks like Connecticut, a lot of farmers are gonna have to, work with the state on implementing those new actions. So that's something that a lot of our farmers in the town have to now go back and look at their existing farms. Some might have to bring them up to standards or whatever they might be required depending on what the different aspects of agriculture is that they're doing. And then as we're looking at doing the farm events, some farmers with the new FSMA have considered that this might be the breaking point for their farm and put up the farm for sale. So I don't know if that's something anyone's considering and as we're working on these farm events too.
Who does FSMA apply to? Any farmer? What's the trigger that makes them?
So FSMA, there's a
Wait a minute,
couple
wait a minute, wait a
exemptions,
minute.
yes.
What is a FSMA?
Food Safety Management Act. Modernization Act, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're working this acronym around like we know what it is.
Yeah, sorry. I've been exposed to it for like the past so many years because we knew it was coming down the pipeline. And it's essentially, so Connecticut used to have, still has, but they just did away with it this year, was the GAP program, so Good Agricultural Practices. And the only farmers in our town that actually practice that because wholesale vendors demanded it if you're doing agriculture. I know Chicorelli's did it, DeFrancesco's did it, because the wholesalers wouldn't buy from them unless you went through this Good Agricultural Practices program. And essentially, the state comes out, inspects you, make sure you're washing your hands, training your employees, all that stuff like that. So now, it's more or less the same, but the federal has their own guidelines that now the state has to. So because of this, the state has said, we're not gonna do GAP anymore, we're gonna do this, and doing like a combination of it. And the state at Department of Agriculture level has been going crazy and getting everything set for all the farmers in the state, and also the farmers in our town. And they've been going to the different farms with this, so as we're, looking at doing the farm events, that might be something to consider is like, well, what do the farmers have to do just for their own employees? And then if they were having farm events, or what it might be. One instance would be if they had like a farm tour. Usually they have to, if it's an active field, they have to have like a checklist and people signing in, just to have it. So like if the state came down, be like, okay, who won this field? Just have like documentation, stuff like that.
So in case you lose somebody on the tour?
Well,
Yeah.
these are-
That's in the corn maze.
Yeah. But it's one of those to help, keep the farm safe as well, but also to make sure like no one's tracking in, contaminated soil on their shoes that could hurt the farmer as well. But to make sure that no one's like going off from the tour and like going to the bathroom in the fields and then coming back and not knowing it.
Why would this be a burden to farmers? Because they have to do this, and then they get a certification from the
If-
state?
Yeah,
Break it
so,
down
so
for-
they get a certificate of cleanliness from the state.
Okay.
And some farmers, whether they might be dairy farmers, cattle, all different aspects of farming, not just our state, but around the
Mhm.
country, this is almost kind of like a breaking point for them, where they're like, well, we're not gonna do farming anymore, we're just gonna sell the farm.
Did it go to public hearing yet, the state?
The state has no say, the feds are saying every state has to do it.
You have to do it.
And then this was done back in 2011.
Oh, I thought they were gonna add to it or whatever, okay.
Nope,
Well, if they're doing away with GAP, so they're just gonna follow it blindly.
Well, no, so they essentially took GAP and what the feds were saying they had to do, and the state added what GAP, what the feds were missing. So essentially Connecticut is more food safe than what the standard fed regulations are asking for, including like traceability. So like when we had the romaine outbreak, they didn't know where the romaine came from. They destroyed romaine from all over. Having that traceability, you could track in case you had a recall where it came from. It's all good. But that's something that farmers are dealing with this year. So it's something to consider when we're doing the special events, how that might impact that.
But we also mentioned too, because we don't nearly have the knowledge that you have other farmers to have a
Working group.
working group.
Yes, and I need to
We wanna
reach
be
out
able
to
to
them, yeah.
digest this as well as
Yeah.
people who live it, so.
Yeah. So.
And the second one?
Well, it kind of goes with that, but I wasn't too sure, because I was thinking, because when we started thinking about the farm events and everything else like that, and I'm not sure how the town might be able to handle it, but also it goes into our previous plans of conservation and the current one for preserving agricultural land, and helping our farmers is, as we all know, the town does have a problem with ATVs driving on farmland, whether it's the town that owns that farmland or farmers that have the farmland, they use it at cut-throughs. And I think it's not being done maliciously, but a lot of the drivers of ATVs might not realize that their tires could be bringing in contaminated soil of disease and pathogens that can actually decrease the value of that farmland and make it untillable for multiple years for most crops that farmers would go, other than hay. And also in the hay lots, with those ATVs going through the hay lots, any oil or gasoline or anything that comes off of those machineries has the potential to make contaminating that hay to make livestock sick that would ingest that. So that might be something to look into. Maybe, I don't know if that fall underneath trying to help the farmers with that, or that might fall into like the plans of conservation. But that's something that I see is being an issue.
How do you handle the problem? We've heard the problem before.
We have.
And, And to be honest with you,
Yeah.
the police have a non-pursuit thing with ATVs.
Sure.
So if the police aren't gonna help you,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this government mandate about contaminating your fields,
Yeah.
you know, that they're, you know, everybody's going like this. You're in the middle, and
Well, that and then the farmers also get hurt as well, and I'll bring in an example from my own family's farm. But there's been times in the years past where we might be on one of the tractors driving around one of the greenhouses. We're not expecting ATVs coming whipping through our fields, and then you get one that's coming 30, 40 miles around the corner. Heaven forbid that crashes into the tractor. That's not gonna be a pretty picture, and now the guilt is on the farmer that happened, and he's gotta live with it for the rest of his life.
I was thinking more of an old string of barbed wire from 1940 between two trees that, you know, nobody's going by and, like you said, going through 40 miles an hour and
Yeah.
Do you
not pretty.
know, do you know what other farmers in other towns do that have this issue? Do you know?
My head
Like
went
in
to, public
Wallingford, maybe,
awareness, like,
or-
are you allowed to go
It's-
make presentations at the schools and
That might be an
appeal to the
option.
more?
Right.
Cause like I said, I think a lot of people don't realize that might be operating as vehicles, like the spreading of the soil and
Mhm.
contaminated fields. I don't think a lot of them realize that, but also like the safety thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you have two, you know, you could go to North Branford School, but two scenarios that I've been involved with, one was from Wallingford, and the other one was from East Haven. You have a lot of out-of-town motorcycle bikers that go from town to town.
Yeah.
So I've had two experiences.
Being
Once,
ATVs on,
well, on the road, in the woods, one,
Oh.
yeah. I mean, there's been two incidences where
Where it's not
one,
being
I almost hit
followed.
somebody, and kind of followed them slowly so I could find out where they lived, and it was Wallingford. And then the same thing, I was going down Route 80, and they just blew past me and a couple other cars, and there was cars coming the other direction. And then they made the turn, that takes you down by the old East Haven High School, I think it was that road, I'm not sure what that is. But yeah, so we have people from out of town, or, you know, coming as
well,
well.
I think public awareness and
Yeah.
Are there any towns that have, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that we do this, but have like an ATV track?
Yeah.
There are ones.
So
within
that there's
the
a
area that
place
do have
where
tracks.
it
Oh, there's
is-
places you can go,
Yeah.
but you have to take it by trailer, you can't. unless
Right,
it's-
right.
Well, I mean, a
There's
motorcycle, you
one
might
off
be
of
able to.
91, I think, is that one?
Were you thinking up towards Cromwell or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a smaller one, I think there's
Okay.
one in Meriden, but there's not a lot of them because nobody wants to take
Well, and the noise. that's
The noise, or,
associated.
and also the
Liability.
liability, somebody gets hurt,
Right.
if somebody gets hurt, you know, then nobody signed a waiver or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
So there's not a lot of places to do that.
Right.
So, just to go on the liability, for instance, so the parcel land that's behind the police station right now, that's the big hayloft field. Heaven forbid, someone got hurt back there on one of the ATVs, or it's twilight, someone's walking, jogging there, they
Right.
collide with someone.
Right.
Where does the liability fall on that then?
Who owns the property?
you could sue anybody,
town
yeah,
does.
it's the-
I don't think, on town property, it's not allowed, so they're trespassing. If you're allowed to run there, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not gonna speculate who's liable, but and I know on town property, you cannot drive ATVs, motorcycles, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I would assume they're trespassing, and also assume if you're walking or running on there, you can. So you have a right to be there, they don't. I think the liability would fall there, but I am not a lawyer. I do not pretend to be one, or pretend to be one on TV.
Play one on TV. The other thought is, EDC is you know, promoting businesses, and farms are a business, so maybe you could talk with them about it, about ways to help educate and promote the importance of staying off of farmland because it impacts your business. Yeah.
I think it's a difficult discussion, because if you have an ATV, you can tell them to the blue in the face, they have them, they're gonna ride them, and.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
thing is,
Yeah.
I'll have to play devil's advocate here. Years ago, when I was on the town council, a citizen complained that his neighbor was running around the neighborhood in his ATV and into town property, and my thing was, well, have you reported this to the police? No. Well, the chief of police was sitting in the back. I said, why don't you talk to the chief of police about this? He says, I don't wanna make my neighbor mad at me.
Mm.
So he wants a person, you know, in this paid position to stake out his neighbor's house for the kid to run so that I can call the cops so that he won't be mad at his neighbor. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, you can public awareness, but,
Mhm.
you know, there's also, the public has to
Personal
do something.
responsibility,
Yeah.
right?
I think the recourse right now is the police department on this. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm not sure how often, I've only seen them a few times up by me and stuff, like I said, but I'm sure maybe down on the farmlands or the tracks down here, there's, I can see the tracks in there, so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how often we use them, but you know they're there. Anything else?
Did I talk or not? Probably not. Just so Alex knows, I'll talk out of turn. We're addressing it at the council level, and the state law allows you to, we can take them and destroy them. And, so where I'm coming from is, we only have to do that once. They're easily $10,000. And we did get after the PD, and they tracked some down with drones right to their house and sent the cruisers there, and they fined them for everything they could. But we need a town ordinance, I believe, George, is that where we're at? We need a town ordinance to accept the state statute that lets you keep
Okay.
once you take it. And I think if we take one, that costs the parents $10,000, and we destroy it, because like Randy says, they'll take it down to, the scrapyard and take pictures of it being crushed. The kids are gonna stop doing it. So it's a big problem.
It is.
We're working on it.
Yeah, it's a big problem in almost in every community.
Yeah.
So.
But
Believe it or
they
not.
Our PD got creative, they won't chase, but a drone can chase.
Yeah.
And they caught 'em.
I forgot about the drones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's good to know though.
Yeah. Anything else? If not, Ron, it's you.
Motion we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.